Welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the college offseason podcast, where you could say we're less of the regular season, but more of the offseason. Matt, I think we've reached the point of the offseason where we have a good idea of what each team's going to look like, at least on paper, heading into next season. Anything from here on out is basically a formality. But with
When
that being said, Matt and I have put together a list of teams, our top five teams in both basketball and football that have had the best offseason. Some teams, the basketball team had a really good offseason, the football team not so much. Some teams, the football team had a really good offseason, and the basketball team not so much. But our top five has both. So we're going to name our top five teams because two heads are better than one
hmm
of the teams that had the best offseason in both football and basketball. Before we get started, Matt, do you have any honorable mentions before we crack our top five?
Yes, LSU, LSU. Why? Because Ryan's not here, and he wanted us to talk about LSU.
Which
But
sport?
the football had a good offseason. But let's be honest, the real star is the basketball team, who, even though they only have three players on the roster right now, they won the offseason by getting our favorite coach, Will
Will
Wade,
Wade.
to return, and thusly our victorious nonetheless. So yeah, LSU honorable mention. I did
Oh,
actually, I did
go ahead.
actually think about Missouri for a minute. They were kind of like the alternate for the fifth team I had, if you recall the early drafts. Then I thought more about it, and I thought the team I put at number five probably made more of an impact. But I've already sung the praises of Missouri's basketball team, going out and getting quite a few really nice big players headlined by Bryson Tiller. Football team has never been more relevant than with Drink. Well, I know they had Chase Daniel. Back to being relevant, maybe would be the way to put that. With Drinkowitz at the helm and getting Austin Simmons to transfer in, I think he could be a really good player. So yeah, Missouri is my honest honorable mention, and I'm not going to get too in depth because we got our top five to talk about. But yeah, LSU for a joke because Ryan's not here and we can do that to him. And then legitimately, the team I almost put at number five, Missouri, because I just thought the team I ended up with had a slightly better time than they did. All right, Les, do you have any honorable mentions before we get into this?
You know I have an honorable mention because when I listen to some other college
Guess what it
basketball,
is, folks?
guess what it is?
Guess what
You'll
it
never
is?
get it. You'll never guess it.
You have one guess, and if you miss it, we're coming to your house and beating you up.
Matt's words, not mine, but I stand by him. But when I listen to some of the other college basketball media list the teams with the best off seasons, the blatant disrespect that my Duke Blue Devils is getting
Oh
by not being
Lord.
mentioned is mind-boggling. How many teams can return five players, including four of their top seven from a year ago, land the number one guard in the portal, another top 30 transfer, and on top of that, yet another number one class? I mean, if this was any other team, not named Duke, this would be considered a historic offseason. But since it's Duke, we expect it, right?
I mean, that's what you get for being one of the premier programs. If you're a blue blood, you do blue blood things less. You know that.
That's true. You are
Brotherhood has
correct.
a high standard, and all this yumbo jumbo I'm hearing in the chat every basketball season. The Brotherhood has expectations. The Brotherhood, of course, they're going to have high expectations. I mean, they'd have to add LeBron James to be like, well, prime LeBron James, not like this. Well, they could probably still be fine with this LeBron James, but you know what I'm trying to say. You'd have to add like NBA like players from the league in order to be an impressive offseason for Duke basketball or a team with Amazon. But no one would ever do that.
No, never.
Never, never would team with like this multi-million-dollar corporation. No one would ever think of doing that. Oh,
No, never. No. We'll see you in November, Yukon.
oh God, here he goes. For the record, we don't know any UConn fans at all, but
All the Yukon fans I know comment on my page.
that's true. That's true. All the fans of certain fan bases we know comment on our pages.
That is correct. But anyways, let's
Football.
officially get into our top five. And
Yes.
Matt, kick us off. Who is the number five team on this list?
Okay, before we get into that too, how this is going to work is with most of these, and you'll see what happens when we get to the top two. I'm doing the basketball, and Les is doing the football element. So when we talk about our number five team here, I'm going to start with basketball. Les is going to cover the football angle because that's his bag, and this team is really good because I know nothing about recruiting, and he does. But our number five team in the ranking right now goes to the Vanderbilt Commodores of Nashville, Tennessee. Anchor down, folks. Anchor down. Now, the reason why I had Vanderbilt at number five for basketball is because of the roster, and I'll get into that. But I think they did the most important thing they could do over the last 2 years, and that's keep Jeff Byington, who's brought who's brought Vanderbilt back. God, I don't want to speak that into existence. Who's brought Vanderbilt back from somewhat irrelevance, from the Oglesby days, and now they're back to where they should be. And they were one incredible half-court, nearly made shot away. We're going on a pretty good run in the NCAA tournament. So you keep Jeff Byington out of the North Carolina crosshairs. You keep him in Nashville. And now you have a pretty good roster with Ace Glass coming in from Washington State, Sebastian Williams Adams from Auburn, Bango Dak from Colorado, really good player, T.O. Barrett from Missouri, a team I mentioned earlier, actually coming from Missouri to Vanderbilt, and a guy whose name will confound me until I say it right, so I'm going to try and say it nice and slow, Berke Bioncentel from Nebraska, who is a really good player. And they could have an even better offseason if and only if, well, if and only if, I guess, theoretically, Tyler Tanner decides to stay with the Commodores. He's entered the draft process. I think he's still got his eligibility open right now. Les is looking at me with like this concerned face, so I want to make sure he's researching that. I think he's still got his eligibility maintained. If he comes back, he's a preseason All American. There's no question. But even if he doesn't, with Chandler Bing hanging in the wings, not the guy from Friends, we're not doing that. Nobody make that joke in the comments or I'll find you. This team really mined the portal. They kept their coach. It's all good for the Commodores right now, basketball wise. They're doing a hell of a job trying to keep that momentum going. And that's why they're number five for basketball. And here's why they're number five in football. Take it away, Les Abbott.
Matt, do you remember the X-Men Origins movie Wolverine back in 2009?
Yes,
Overall was pretty mid movie that was
yes.
heavily criticized, but it did debut Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, which was very important down the road in superhero cinema.
Little did we know.
Little did we know. But that's how I feel about Vanderbilt's offseason in football. 32nd ranked recruiting rank, 32nd recruiting rank, 44th transfer portal rank, meh. But you do land the number one quarterback in this class in Jared Curtis. But you don't just land him, you flip him from a perennial powerhouse in the Georgia Bulldogs. That makes it all worth it.
Yes.
And just to tell you how good I think Jared Curtis is as a prospect, he could be the best quarterback to come out of Vandy. Yes, over Jay Cutler. And maybe, here's a hell of a pull for you, even over the 1952 number one overall pick in the NFL draft and NFL champion Bill Wade. He's
I forgot
that
it.
talented. And if you look at who the top quarterbacks in the NFL are right now, what I will have to say about that is that their rosters looked a lot more like what you see in Vanderbilt than they do at Georgia.
Mm-hmm. I think you're 100% on the money there. And once again, for a school like Vanderbilt, I think another key is even though they always say, well, he's not going anywhere, the fact you keep Clark Lee around and keep him on a pretty good deal, that's more important. That's almost as important as getting some of these guys to transfer in. But I'll take that anytime. If you're a fan of like a school like Vanderbilt who's used to being a feeder, look at James Franklin. We all remember what happened there. You got to take anytime you can keep your coach next year for a good sign going forward. So we got Vanderbilt at number five. And at number four, I'm going to do the basketball here again. We've got a team that I think people in our area kind of expect us to talk about, but there's no reason we shouldn't avoid them because they do make great moves. And that would be at number four, the Louisville Cardinals basketball and football teams on our list. And I'm going to start with the obvious, which is, well, they had one of the biggest portal splashes when they brought in Flory Badunga and Jackson Shellstad on the same day. Shellstad is coming off an injury, but he's a hell of a player. We all know what Flory Badunga is capable of. And then you add in guys like Carter Knox, a move Les was not exactly a fan of. He's wishy-washy on that, but still a big, splashy impact name. You got Alvaro Foygrass. Why did I call him Foygrass? You get Fulgaris from Iowa, who was an NCAA hero. An underrated move, I think, getting Deshane Montgomery from Dayton. I always love Dayton. Dayton makes really good players, and he's one of them. You get Gabe Dines. That move is one where it's like, yes, the guy is 7'5", but I mean, you played sparing minutes at UCLA, and they weren't really
USC.
USC. I'm sorry, and they weren't great minutes. I mean, you averaged 3 points and a block, 2 rebounds. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But what really matters there is I think that was a case of stealing Kentucky's cookies. So I think that may be worth even if the guy sits on the bench half the year. But I think the move that really made Louisville set apart actually happened this week because it gave them more options. And Les is probably going to have a better take on this than I am, so he can jump in at any point. But Obinna Ezike Jr., I think that's one of those moves where it's one of the better moves you make if you're Louisville because now you get a little bit more flexibility. You can try and start this guy and put Bedinga at the 4. You can do all kinds of things. You can do all kinds of things with him. But like I said, I don't know much about recruiting. All I know is that this guy looks like a stud, and I think he opens up a lot of space now for Louisville to like maneuver their roster around. And we cannot forget too that they still got London Johnson and Adrian Woolley, two guys who, I don't think London Johnson really played at all last year in any meaningful time, but Adrian Woolley did, and he looked pretty good. And they still got some spots open, yeah. But when it comes to making a splash in the portal, when you start out with Shellstad and Badunga, that's going to be one hell of a start. And then you just keep adding guys. And when we finish with Les finishes with the football element here, I'm just going to make the blanket statement for both of Louisville's coaches. So Les, you can add into that Ezike take, or you can move on to football. Just do what you feel like, buddy. Do what you
Yeah.
feel like.
I'll start with Ezike first. You're absolutely right that this gives Louisville versatility in the front court, but I do think Ezike, should he start, would move to the 4, and Badunga would stay at the 5. The reason I say that, Badunga doesn't really have much of a perimeter threat in his game. He's more of, energy, rebound, defense kind of guy. Ezike's got a little bit of a soft touch, so you could probably move him to the 4. I was just going to add that. But no, I'm going to get into football. And what I have to say about the football team is there are two things that Louisville did this offseason that stand out. Number one, Jeff Brom expanded his quarterback horizons, landing Lincoln Kienholz, who is much different than Jack Plummer, Tyler Shuck, and Miller Moss. And number two, they were able to outbid Texas to keep Isaac Brown in the 502. But then you look at their portal class as a whole, and it's ranked 18th, sneaky good. And be on the lookout for former Iowa safety Cohen Ettringer and former Tulsa tight end Brody Foley. But on the recruiting end, watch out for 3-star athlete Marlon Harbin out of St. X High School. One of the most versatile players who have ever put on a Tiger uniform, and one of the very few that was a 4-year varsity starter for the Tigers.
Which is impressive.
Very.
If you know,
From firsthand, we do not do that often.
let's say if you know the area, you know how big of a deal that is at a school like that.
And Marlon Harbin, his senior year, kind of played the little Travis Hunter role because they played him on both offense and defense, which is also something, if you know the area, St. X does not do often.
No, they don't do that a lot at all. But what about the weeds, Les? What about the weeds?
We ain't talking about them.
The weeds. I love it. It's just that's the rivalries. They're Trinity. They're the Shamrocks, and they call them the Weeds. And I just love whenever they beat Saint X, you always get the Weeds won, and I'm like, oh no, we're succumbing to drug use. And it's like, no, they just call them the Weeds.
Or do they?
Or do they? Yes. But anyway, like I said when I finished up the basketball, I think Kelsey and Brom are of course getting that ultimatum like you've taken the baby steps and now it's winning time. You've got the money. You're the only show in town. I'm sorry, Louisville Kings. I'm sorry. You're the only shows in town, along with the women's basketball team. You better start winning. This is winning time. We have no lack of resources. You have big contract security. You have big contract extensions. We're in the portal. We're in recruiting. We're getting our guys. It's time for you, Pat Kelsey, to move beyond the first round or first weekend, and I think they will. And it's time for you, Jeff Brom, to actually make that push for the college football playoff. And spoiler alert, we'll get to it, but I think they will. We'll have to see how it develops and how other teams are over time. But I think they've got a good shot. I think they do. We'll just have to see, especially if it goes to 24 teams. If it goes to 24 teams, there's no excuse why Louisville shouldn't be in the playoff. But, speaking of the ACC, there was a team that did not win the ACC last year in football, nor in basketball, that still had a pretty good season and improved on, well, I don't know if you can improve on a national runner up appearance in football, but their basketball team took a massive step forward, and that's where we're going to start with our number 3 team out of the ACC, those Miami Hurricanes. Now, the main thing here is that the Jay Lucas experiment, it's working, man. It's really working. The Jay Lucas experiment is working. You got Malik Renault last year. You make a really good run. And how do you follow that up? Well, you just go out and you get a Caden Lewis from Villanova. You get Simoto Cyril from Georgia, nice big man. You've got Caleb Gaskins coming in. You keep Shelton Henderson on the roster. And you had some good depth pieces in Nick Dorn, who, I'll be the first to tell you Indiana was underwhelming as hell last year, especially offensively. But in a role like this, where he's not expected to do what people thought he was doing at Indiana, which, that's a whole other beast entirely. Nick Dorn can really shine in that role, and I really like Deshaun Good, too. So, yeah, the Jay Lucas experiment is working. It's gaining momentum. Gaskins is a hell of a prospect. They did pretty well in the portal, getting positions of need taken care of. I really think that Miami is going to be even better than they were last year. And I'm not going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. I don't think anybody's going to contend with Duke in the ACC in basketball next year. But there's like a gaggle of 2 or 3 teams that include what we just talked about, Louisville and Miami, that are going to be like really sneakily underrated when March comes because the ACC has usually, crapped out a little bit, let's be honest. But I think Miami is a sneaky good team, and Jay Lucas has proved that his formula is coming to a great conclusion. So, yeah, Miami is number 3 for basketball for me for that reason. But one could argue they had a good football offseason, a good basketball offseason. But their football may have gotten even better. And I totally didn't do this just to make Les talk about one of the most disappointing days of his life. I promise. It's a disappointing day for a reason because the guy that Miami football got is just so damn good. So Les, tell us your pains and heartbreaks. It's okay.
It's funny you say that because I really was starting to think this was all an inside job to get Matt to get me to talk about first how Isaac Brown stayed at Louisville over going to my Texas Longhorns. But now having me talk about Miami's offseason, yes, Miami did swoop in last minute and take Darian Menza and Cooper Barkate from my Duke Blue Devils, just like a Sonic the Hedgehog redesign for the movie. But in all seriousness, from a football aspect, it's going to work out in their favor because Barkate is a very reliable receiver to pair next to Malachi Toney. And Darian Menza is one of, if not the best quarterbacks in college football. And they may even get snaps from the best offensive line prospect in this class, Jackson Cantwell, who should anchor their line for years to come. I still have questions about their defense, but they will have an offense that rivals the Cam Ward year where they had the top offense in college football.
Yeah, those are my thoughts exactly. That's going to be a scary, scary offensive team.
Yeah, and I mean, as a Duke fan, I hated to lose Menza because I've said on this podcast that if he was going to stick around in Durham, he would be the best quarterback in Duke football history. He was that good.
Sorry, Sonny Jorgensen. Go suck it.
Hasta la later, Sonny Jorgensen, you no-telling piece of garbage for my Blue Mountain State fans out there.
Oh my god. The real question you've raised, though, is does that mean that Mario Cristobal is Eggman?
Yes.
I knew it.
But yeah. No, I really do think this was planned. You wanted me to talk about Isaac. That's why you made me talk about football. So I could talk about Isaac Brown getting outbid to stay in Louisville versus going to Texas, and you talk about how Miami swooped in at the last minute to
All according to
take our offense.
plan. Hey, I made up for it though. I made up for it. So we'll get there. We'll get there. But now it's time for the number 2 team and the number 1 team, and we're going to switch it up a little bit here because, and I swear once again, we did not plan this. Well, we did. Let's be honest. The 1 and 2 teams on our list are teams we know a lot about because we happen to really enjoy watching them play. And because I was mean to Les earlier, you can probably surmise who number 1 is. But number 2 is the Indiana Hoosiers. And I'm going to start with the basketball. And here's the thing that gets me. I could have said this about any offseason in like the post Trace Jackson Davis era, which is really shocking with the returns they've had. But that's part of the reason why I put them at number 2 is because as we discuss on this podcast often, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But for some reason, it works with recruiting in Indiana. I don't think any Hoosier fan would totally be pissed with me. They would. But let's be honest, their production the last few years has been absolutely abysmal given what they've had talent wise. And you'd think that maybe that good luck would come to an end. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Like everyone graduates, and what do? Oh, you go out and you get Marcus Burton, you get Lindsey from Villanova, you get Aiden Sherrill, the biggest pickup, you Turgaloo from SMU. You go out, you get like another 7-footer yesterday from Germany, who's pretty good looking on paper. You don't really maintain. You get a lot of. You get the 3 freshmen coming in, even though we'll talk about this, but Les has his thoughts on one of them. But you've still got them coming in. I mean, they've rectified all the mistakes they made with the roster, which was not being big and not having enough guards. They may or may not get Miles Rice to come back, which would be like a really weird redemption arc, but I'm here for it. You get Darren Harris from Duke, he's really good. I mean, it's incredible to me that like Indiana, with as little success as they've had and as crazy rabid as this fan base can get, can still go out and pretty much like be like, we have a roster idea and we want all these guys, and then they just happen to walk in the door. It's just amazing. And I mean, that's a good offseason where you're able to replace that many players coming off a rather intense first season. And I mean, this has now become like a prove it year for DeVries, let's be honest. And the eternal optimist in me is like, well, that team last year, which had like an incredible amount of issues, still found a way to almost make the tournament. And now they have a roster like this. And the inverse of that is, well, they haven't done it before. But either way, Indiana men's basketball had a great offseason. They brought in a lot of new bodies. There really wasn't anyone on last year's team that had eligibility that was like a must keep. So having Sisley around is a benefit. I mean, he's 6'7". He's only going to get stronger probably. But they brought in a lot of, oh, Lord, I did it again. Oh, Lord, I did it. But they've got enough talent on that roster now. Now, even with these last 2 spots, I don't see how you can't call it a win. This roster feels like it was built with a purpose, and now expectations are high, and now we'll just have to see if they live up to it for once. But, I mean, what can you say about the other side of that, which is the football thing? You're coming off your first national championship, which is a sentence I don't think many people in the history of the football would ever thought they'd say. Indiana coming off a football national championship. And you don't lose a lot. You keep a lot of the great defensive line and secondary that got you there. You do lose your quarterback, you lose your receivers, but now that you've got that national championship swagger to you, who do you go out? You get Nick Marsh and Shaz Preston, who are 2 of the better receivers, I think, in the portal, and probably going to be just as good as those guys last year. You hold off the suitors for Charlie Becker to keep him in Bloomington. You had Turbo Richard. You had Joe Burner on the offensive line. But their defense was good last year, and they're like, you know what? Let's add more defense. And so you go and you get Toby Osunsami from Kansas State and his partner Chidi Obizor from Kansas State. Those guys are good. You get Joshua Burnham from Notre Dame. You get A.J. Harris to play corner. You get Preston Zachman at safety. You get Sanks from Cincinnati and Carson Williams, an underrated guy from Montana State. You even go out and you get kickers and punters that can do amazing things. And basically, you're having the greatest offseason of all time if you're Indiana. I mean, I know that's hard to say after last year, but people thought they'd be good, but now there's even more expectations. And of course, you've got Josh Hoover now, who, quarterbacks are weird. They never look good in spring games, I guess, from what I've read, from what I've seen from like podcasts. It's always like ours. It's always like the guy you expect to look good never does, and somebody else usually is better. But still, I don't know how coming off one of the most improbable things anyone has ever seen, you could have a better offseason than Indiana did with their football team, adding in all those guys. That's the perfect. The iron is hot, and we don't need to get. We can get a lot of like specialty players because we've kept a good core, and that's what I think they're doing here. I mean, I'm really impressed with how Signetti handled, or whoever the GM is handled, like bringing these guys in because they look good on like paper and in practice. These guys look really good, especially those receivers and those defensive linemen. Epic portal recruiting. I mean, yeah, not my strong suit, but I really do like the Bond signing, especially. I don't know why. I like little wide receivers. I blame Dante Moncrief for something. But it's always good to see guys like that. And they're really building on making a better roster through the portal. And now I think they're going to focus on recruiting so they can keep these guys in Bloomington. But yeah, great off seasons. One deserved for Indiana football, one kind of a surprise for Indiana basketball. And now Les is going to take the the number one team, because he's got something to say.
But before you do that, I do want to double down on Matt speaking to Hoosier Nation because I have two really good things to say about the offseason Indiana had. Number one, don't get discouraged that Darren Harris didn't get a lot of run of Duke. He just got warped into a very loaded backcourt.
Yep.
Because I've said it once, I've said it 100 times on this show. When I saw from Darren Harris in high school, when I watched him in his senior season in the Chipotle Nationals, I swear up and down that he was the second best player in that tournament. The first being Cooper Flagg, who just won NBA Rookie of the Year. So if that's any indication of what kind of player you're getting from Darren Harris, you're going to be very excited. And number two, about the Indiana football offseason, is I'm going to say is because technically it began during the title run. It
Right.
felt like IU was already trying to go back to back before they won their first one. And to top it off, they have the perfect replacement at quarterback because last season, the top two quarterbacks in RPO passes. Number one, y'all know him pretty well. He's now playing for the Raiders. And number two, he's now playing for the Hoosiers and Josh Hoover.
Kurt Yeti has a type, is what I'm hearing.
So Kurt Signetti, up until this offseason, Kurt Signetti and Jeff Brom both had types at quarterback.
Now, not as much, not as much. All right, but I've tortured you enough in this podcast, Les. But there is something I can't deny, and it is who had a really, really good offseason, especially surprising in men's basketball, given that they went on a very late run. But Les, I don't know how long we've got left. We've probably got like 10 minutes at this point. So I'm just going to let you have your moment in the sun here. We're going to go down and make things all right, all right, all right. And we're going to let you talk about a team that you love almost as much as Duke. Almost. I don't actually know which one you love more. That's the thing that confuses me here. But anyway, Les, just take it away because we all know what we're here to hear you talk about.
The number one team who had the best offseason in both basketball and football is none other than my Texas Longhorns. I'll start with basketball. Matt, you remember, I was skeptical at first
You
when
were.
Sean Miller was hired. But after a surprise Sweet 16 run and now an offseason like this, I'm officially all in on the Miller regime. It started with Modest Vocatitis, aka Big Vochi, coming back. Then the number three portal class coming in, plus three four-star commits on the recruiting cycle. The basketball team has put themselves in a position to be one of the top teams in the SEC in year two of the Miller regime and maybe a sleeper Final Four pick.
Maybe.
But sports aside, there is no better team who had a better offseason than Texas football. And I'm going to take my sweet time talking about this.
I'm going to go get a drink while you do that.
Oh, no, don't. No, wait.
I can hear
Because
you.
I want you to hear this.
Go ahead. I can hear.
Because Matt admitted on this show that he laughed at me after the James Franklin firing from Penn State. I got on this show and said that if Steve Sarkisian is not careful, he could wind up in the same position.
I did say that.
But all this offseason has shown is that Texas is title or bust this year. They've estimated around 40 million in NIL spending for this year. But it's not just the number 3 portal class. It's not just the number 7 recruiting class. What separates Texas' offseason from everyone else is the coaching hires. Will Muschamp returns. Best defensive coordinator in team history. Yeah, he's back. Blake Gideon comes back to coach the secondary. Plenty of guys he recruited still on the roster. Jabbar Jalouk is now coaching the running backs. He's one of the best in the nation, and a pipeline to Florida, a hotbed for some of the best skilled recruits in the country. But the one that takes the cake, the winningest coach in Kentucky history, a thorn in everyone's side in the SEC, Mark Stoops. He's now a special assistant to the head coach. And now, with all these moves on defense and coaching, Sark is going to be able to do what he does and control the offensive play calling, which we've seen he's damn good at. Because if you remember, he was the offensive coordinator on the most efficient offense in NCAA football history in that 2020 Alabama national championship team. But yes, we could go on and on about Cam Coleman coming in through the portal, Hollywood Smothers, Raleek Brown, Rasheem Biles, and they're great. But what separates Texas from everybody else is how they've revamped their entire coaching staff. And that's what makes them the team with the best offseason in college sports.
I was going to argue with you about that, but there's really no point because, you're right. I would look more at the wow factor, and the wow factor is Cam Coleman to me. That guy is just so freaking good. And I know that, that's why I'm more of a spectator with college football, and you guys are more of the analyst, which is why you're doing the football, believe it or not, Les. But
No, it was to get me to talk about Isaac Brown and Darian Menza, don't lie.
it was part of that, yes. That's always the fun part. But yeah, Texas just has a wow factor still, and I think that this may be the year. I'm just going to say it. As long as Arch Manning continues to improve, this may be the year.
Well, they've set the standard that's the expectation for this
That's
year.
they have. Texas and Oregon. Imagine a Texas and Oregon championship game.
Oh, that'd be some fireworks right there. Even from
your generational curse.
just like the receiving aspect of it, you have the two receiving cores going at it. Texas's receiving core with Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, and Jermaine Bishop Jr. Not to mention with Oregon, you have Evan Stewart, you have DeCorian Moore. They also have a very loaded receiver room as well. Just from that alone, the fireworks in that game would be amazing. Not to mention the quarterback matchup between Arch Manning and Dante Moore. Dante Moore could have gone in the NFL draft this year. He might have been, honestly, I would have taken him over Fernando Mendoza if I was a franchise.
If I would have too, honestly, if that was a chance. I love Mendoza, but there's something about Moore. I know Indiana fans will always have the Sugar Bowl and D'Angelo Pons and all that, but there's just something about Moore that makes him seem really special to me.
You could argue he's one of the. You could argue. I think there's 3 quarterbacks next year that make a case for the best quarterback in college football. We've already talked about Darian Menza. We're talking about Dante Moore right now, and of course Arch Manning. Those are the big 3. But as a Texas fan, I'm hoping Arch says, "F the big 3, it's the big me."
No. Well, that means they're good. Well, no. That means he would have to call one of those guys a pedophile on national TV, though.
We could do it. No, we could do it to Darian Menza for how he left Duke.
Whoa, really? You're gonna have everybody? That would be like at the Arch Championship game. Arch Manor makes everyone like a minor.
Hey, Menz, I hear you like them young. You ain't never been to Cell Block 1. Obviously, this is all joke. We are not making these allegations against Darian Menza. This is all jokes. This is all Kendrick Lamar jokes. Before anyone wants to claim defamation on me, this is all jokes.
Everything will not be all right if Les will not love himself if this does not go well. Derek Benson.
Or you could say it's just all part of God's plan.
Oh my God. We're gonna get that hotline bling from our lawyers here in a minute. That can only mean one thing: we've made a bad joke. Oh God. I know when that hotline bling, we've accused someone of something they didn't do.
Ever since you left Durham, ooh.
So does that mean that Dante Moore is J. Cole? He just kind of issues a statement and then goes back to the wilderness.
He just goes back to Port Antonio. Okay, I'll stop.
We gotta. Okay, we're flying close to the sun here. But jeez, there will never be a cultural moment as good as that. I will say that. The
No.
whole summer of Not Like Us was just, oh wow, he said that. Oh
Mm-hmm.
wow, that record's #1. Oh wow, it won a Grammy. Oh wow, he's at the Super. Oh, he's not. Oh, he did. Oh wow.
I think that's the one rap beef of the modern century that like everybody was tuned into. Because I mean,
Yeah,
we were just all checking our phones, checking social media, see who's dropped what, and of course we got Euphoria, Not Like Us. You got Family Matters on the Drake side, all really good diss tracks. It was a lot of fun. Probably, I mean, obviously in the history of hip hop, there's the NWA versus Ice Cube battles, and Pac versus Biggie, but for modern rap beefs, that's as good as it gets.
he heard my dad heard Not Like Us and went, it's not no Vaseline, and turned it off.
I mean, there's No Vaseline is historically one of the best disses of all time.
It's got a great sample too.
You
Love
know
it.
what's an underrated diss track?
What is this
The
podcast?
Truth.
No,
The Truth by Gucci Mane.
Gucci Mane. Whatever happened to Gucci Mane? Is he still around?
He's still around, yeah.
Oh, good. Because there was somebody I saw who was like had to cancel their tour. It might have been like Little Uzi Vert. I was like, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
And Uzi's like fairly newer. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Matt and I are old, so like they're all newer
Yes,
to
we're
us.
very.
I mean, no, I'm doing good to know who Ken Carson is, apparently.
These newfangled whippersnappers and their Brock
Now we really showing
Hampton,
our age with that one.
these whippersnappers and their Brockhampton records.
Hey, I
God,
told you before we got on the show that the pop culture references were going to be amazing.
yeah, they're popping off, as the kids say. No cap, no cap, for real, for real.
Yeah, throw in a little 6-7. We got about a
That
minute left, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the way. As
good.
always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel to get the latest updates we have on content coming out. Be sure to follow the social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. It's at Less is More Sports. Be sure to follow the side quest on TikTok. That's at BeansDad018. Now we just wait for the timer to cut us off.
Yeah, I know. We'll just we'll just reference rappers and pray Darian Mensa forgives us.
It's all jokes, Darian. I
Derek
don't
and
blame
Mensa,
you.
my
They
front
gave
row. Oh
you
my God.
Hey, pop culture reference. Miami gave Darian Menza a deal he couldn't refuse.
Oh no. Now you're suggesting he's going to become a mobster?
He might already be one.
We are trying to get this guy to sue us, aren't we? This is worse than Goodfellas, man.
Dude, he probably made more leaving Duke to go to Miami than I'll see in my entire life.
That's
He I ain't
probably
got nothing he wants.
that's probably true. That's probably true. But he could still show up at your house and be like, "Am I funny to you? Like a clown? Ha ha, funny? What do you mean by funny?"
If he talks like that, I'll be very surprised.
He is Joe Pesci in disguise.